What is going to happen in this case about Michigan and sign stealing, and why is it taking so long, and why do I think everybody is going to be very unhappy with the outcome? What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, welcome. Thank you for joining us here. We talk college football 24/7, 365 days a year, even the day after the Super Bowl, in which Jalen Hurts becomes the first Oklahoma quarterback to win a Super Bowl as a starter. Man went to Alabama. He was a rental at Oklahoma, but you know what? At this point, given Oklahoma went 6-7, gonna take what we can get. Now, on the other side of this, Michigan actually ended things on a very positive note going into 2025. They beat their rival, Ohio State, and they beat the national champions, and they beat Alabama for a consecutive year, and Jalen Milroe just can't get past that team, it seems, the way he could get past a team like, say, Georgia in back-to-back years. First beating the SEC championship game and then beating them as they were, to become the #1 team in the country. They just can't beat Vanderbilt. They can't beat Oklahoma. The thing that I think is most interesting about where Michigan is in all of this is that, taking it back to a story that Ross Dellinger wrote for Yahoo Sports back in January, they're just not backing down on any of this, which I think if you're a Go Blue fan, you are pumping your chest going, yeah, the administration is not backing down on this, and they're poking holes in all of this. In the limited part of the 137-page response to the notice of allegations that was submitted to them by the NCAA, we learn a few things. The first is that, I think, not the first, but the one that I think is most important, is that it doesn't sound like Michigan got narked on by Ohio State or any private investigator at Ohio State or any alumnus of Ohio State. It got narked on by it be your own people sometimes. Somebody at Michigan with some knowledge that they probably should not have had, or a very limited amount of people had, understood what was going on. R.E. Connor Stallions and the spreadsheet my man kept. This is a sidebar. But this is a sidebar that I think we need to discuss here, because some of us was raised on the wire and some of us were not. And I don't like amateurs coming out here being amateurish. Y'all always be writing stuff down, man. Why y'all be taking notes on a criminal conspiracy like this? Like, I understand that you want to be able to show your work, but not in this particular way, dog. Like, if you know what you're doing is, let's say, at best in a gray area, and you want to gray ball it, like some of y'all dudes in Silicon Valley know what I'm talking about, then yeah, maybe. But you know what you're not going to do? You're not going to keep no receipts, and that's what they was doing. Your man kept receipts, and not only did he keep receipts, he gave the story to Netflix, which, dog, the one way that you keep your name up out of people's mouths is by not talking to people that make documentaries to show to millions of people on the most popular streaming platform that is not called YouTube. Like, dead ass. Like, I don't understand that part. Did you want to get caught? Because it sounded like you wanted to get caught because it was the only way you was going to get the recognition that you deserved for what you had done. Man, some of us, we want to do it in a way that everybody gets to come around and say kumbaya, or some of us want to do it in a way in which everybody gets to clap for you, right? You don't want to be doing it on the down low. That's not how you get your flowers, my guy. Like, that's just not how it's going to go. But now you got your flowers. But now Michigan fighting for their life, and they left you out in the cold, as you told us in the Netflix documentary, for which I did a segment on this. You can go check it out when it dropped in August. But the notice of allegations, response needed to come back, and then they get to take a look at what Michigan had to say, and then the Committee on Infractions needs to do it, because the NCAA's enforcement office basically is the prosecutor, and the Committee on Infractions is basically the judiciary, and the defendant is the University of Michigan, and among other things, they want to know who narked on them. I'm like, we would all like to know who be narking. But you know what? Sometimes anonymity is what you need to get things done. Now, some of y'all be out here using anonymity so y'all can be foul on the internet. I don't enjoy that at all. Burner accounts are for cowards. You gonna say it, give me your damn name if you gonna call somebody a name. If you gonna go and drop the goods on somebody, you think there might be some retribution somewhere, maybe you ought to think about where you're dropping the goods and whether or not that's worth it. Or as my daddy would once say, When I absolutely positively was going to have my way, he would say, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And the answer to the question is almost never, my guy. It's almost never worth the squeeze. It's almost always more trouble than it is worth. And I think that is what Michigan's strategy is becoming here. They're going to make this more trouble than it is worth. This is about knowing your mark as much as it is about knowing the case. Before I decided that I needed to go and write about stuff for a living, took the LSAT, I had a really good score, and I had a really good opportunity to go be a lawyer. Something I've always thought about, something I've always enjoyed. My patron goddess is Athena, goddess of reason, goddess of argument, goddess of strategy. It'd be like Odysseus and me, right? Like that's how I see it in my brain, right? Got the owl tattoos and everything. So I was interested in this because what it comes down to is, do you know the law? Which means, do you know basic fundamentals of football, let's say? Do you know how to play football? Do you know how to exploit the weakness? Yeah. Then do you know the enemy? Do you know the opponent? Okay. Do you know what they are up against? And I think Michigan does, right? Because I'm looking at the Committee on Infractions, and many people just don't get this part through their skull. There are two things that are working against the NCAA that are of its own doing. One is the NCAA was built on a model of amateurism for which we do not function with anymore. So many of the laws are not only antiquated, they don't have any teeth because the enforcement arm and the Committee on Infractions really don't have that much control over what it is you want to do. Can they give you a show cause? Yeah. But is that going to prevent the football team from playing? No. Is it going to make it hard for some guys to move around? Sure. But for the most part, we are the best at policing this, and we need to create new rules that evolve to this. And I'm not in on the whole commissioner thing because I don't think that one man should have all that power. I really don't. I think it should be a collection of people. And while I'm going to be the first one throwing darts at the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, I damn sure like a selection committee better not like one damn dude, and it will be a dude, making all these decisions on our behalf of a sport that we've been playing for 156 years. It's got 134 teams in the FBS, and I just don't trust one of y'all to get the decisions right. I just don't do it. Now, a football coach would, because that's what football coaches do. They think that their way is the best way, no highway option. That's how they get to that spot. Meanwhile, the Committee on Infractions is made up of, and let me say this slowly, volunteers. Do you know how you can guarantee that you're going to get as little done as possible? You put people on a panel who don't need the money, who don't want the money, who ain't got nothing else to do but to sit here and take a look at these particular items in front of them. And what they really want to do is just chat with each other, because there is no incentive for them to do a really, really good, thorough job. And why would you want to in this particular instance? Like, this is paperwork. This is meant to blind you. This is meant to just drown you in forms and functions. And that's what I would be doing if I was working at the University of Michigan, because that's be my job. Whereas I got basically a public defender. I got a person over here that is swamped, that is getting overworked and underpaid. That's working in my favor. So I'm just going to make that person's life the way that it would normally go. Overworked and underpaid. You're not getting paid enough to do all this work. Me, I got billable hours in the thousands over here. I got time for this. I think that's one way. The second way in which I think that this is working against the NCAA is, again, whatever you want to throw at Michigan, they could probably eat. I mean, remember, Bill Self has thumbed his nose at the NCAA, and Kansas keeps right on trucking, because that's where we are now, right? We do not have any good punitive measures for college football. We don't. We don't have punitive measures for name, image, and likeness tampering. We don't have punitive measures for how people get talked about once they enter the portal or out of the portal. They're all things that we would do anecdotally or locally, right? We kind of make it as we go along, especially as we're waiting on House v. the NCAA to get settled. There is some opposition to that, but it's probably going to go through on April 7th. And then there's the whole bit of the sign stealing part of it, right? Which part of this are the rules they broke? Well, if they broke the rules, it'd be the one where you electronically recording, the signs and whatnot. That part is illegal. But what Michigan is alleging is that you can't actually prove that. And even if you could, that dude was working on his own. Like, we didn't know none of that. So you got to cobble all that together if you are the enforcement office, and you got to give it to a bunch of, let me say this again very slowly, volunteers. Whereas Ryan Day's getting paid $12.5 million to do his job. And let me tell you something. Ohio State head coach is not no volunteer activity, okay? I think that looking at this as you going down to the Boys and Girls Club to do a good deed and looking at this like you got to run a multi-million-dollar Fortune 500 company, that's the way that you should be looking at this. Over here is Michigan, which is the multi-billion-dollar Fortune 500 company. Over here be Boys and Girls Club where you be, working at. And they bringing all this to you, all this paperwork. You're going, I ain't got time for this. I just don't. It's another reason why I think it's taking as long as it's taken. I don't think that anybody's going to be happy because Michigan doesn't believe that this has risen to the level of them needing to defend it at all. But if we're going to be here together. We're going to be miserable together because that's what you do. You make this a miserable activity for all. And if you are able to do something, Connor Stallion is no longer part of Michigan. The person that you probably be going after would be Jim Harbaugh, who's the head coach, but he's not in the NCAA, so he is out of your jurisdiction. And you know what? The NFL is not about to extradite Jim Harbaugh and be like, tell us what you want us to do with him and we'll get it done. That's not what they're going to do. They don't care. They really, really, really do not care. So who's left? Sherrone Moore, who deleted some text messages, recovered some text messages, and then said, cool, there's nothing in the text messages. Have at it. Do what you want. Meanwhile, they got the head coach they want. He is doing a good job. He lost an offensive coordinator, or I should say fired an offensive coordinator, hired Chip Lindsey, who I think is going to do a good job. He got the best quarterback available, maybe the best quarterback in the 2025 class in Bryce Underwood to fill a position of need, and he's able to keep Wink Martindale coaching the defense. On top of that, again, he beat Ohio State. He beat Alabama. He had a winning season. They won their bowl game. That's a banner year for a first-year head coach at Michigan, let alone the first black head coach at Michigan. I'm pointing out because it's Black History Month. It's February. It's important to me. I don't think anybody's going to be happy with this. But I did want to talk about it just a little bit because it might be coming down. But as Michigan fans like to get in here on the Ohio State segments and, talk their noise, by all means, talk your noise, I would just like you to answer for me the question. When am I going to get to see the paperwork? When do I get to put my eyes on the NOA? Because I would like to read it.